Karen Bolin, quien es y ha sido la directora de Montrose School durante los últimos 16 años. Montrose es una escuela independiente, es decir, privada, para chicas de 12 a 18 años en el estado de Massachusetts, en Estados Unidos. También es una investigadora en el Centro de Carácter y Responsabilidad Social en la Universidad de Boston. Sus dos áreas de experiencia más altas son: 1. Integrar el desarrollo del carácter en el liderazgo escolar y la educación de los padres y profesores. Y 2. Aprovechar el poder de la literatura para educar la imaginación moral y la sabiduría práctica de los jóvenes. Karen ha aparecido en medios y periódicos estadounidenses como el Radio Nacional, The Early Show en CBS, también el New York Times y el Boston Globe. Hoy, Karen nos hablará sobre el Instituto LifeCompass, es decir, no burbuja, es brújula, gracias. Burbuja es bubble. La brújula de la vida de carácter y liderazgo en Montrose. LifeCompass proporciona material para líderes de colegios y también para profesores y también para padres que usan marcos y herramientas basadas en investigación para la educación del carácter en las escuelas y en el hogar también. Yo conocí a Karen por primera vez en 2015 y siempre me ha impresionado su liderazgo, su tranquilidad bajo presión y su conexión con los alumnos. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Karen Bolin.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for such a generous introduction. And it is such a joy for me to be with you in Rome. I wish I could be right over in Rome. In fact, I was supposed to be in Rome right now with my students. Our trip was canceled this year. So this is a great treat for me to be with you. So I thought we would spend some of our time together talking a little bit about the LifeCompass Institute as a freestanding institute based in a school, but has an outward influence shaping teacher education and professional development, providing curriculum and teaching resources, and providing inspiration and support to parents through our blog, our professional development programs for parents and for teachers. So these are just 3 of the resources that you can find on our website. One is our podcast, which has a growing international listenership. And here you will hear from Montrose students, our teachers, and some outside experts in a variety of different fields. My 2 favorite podcasts are a most recent one that the girls did on talking about race. It's called Courageous Conversations. They created this podcast in April, long before we had the devastation and injustices that we've seen most recently in our country. And there's a powerful conversation and introduction by their teacher. And there's another podcast with some professors in the area of emotional intelligence, civics education, and character, called The Sweet Spot. What's the intersection between character, civics, and social and emotional learning? So there's a number of, you can take them out on a walk or a jog and enjoy them. And the blog is replete with research-based tools for parents, a lot of short pieces on how do you talk to your child when they're in a stressful and difficult situation? How do you coach them so they can navigate those challenges and turn them into opportunities? And then our most recent publication is Stress Tests of Character. And you'll find in that a variety of tools that may be effective for you. Let's see. Here's some of the podcast topics you can look at, listening to what the girls did in the context of the pandemic and how they built community. There's some fabulous pieces on the power of poetry. And then the stress tests, we're really capitalizing on the phenomenon that in our sympathetic nervous system, we have 2 primary responses. They're necessary to our hardwiring: fight or flight. And if we reframe stress appropriately and coach young people to reframe stress appropriately, we can turn that fear, anxiety, those sweaty palms, that racing heart, we can flip the switch, reframe it, and turn it into excitement and focused and channeled energy for good. So Stress Test of Character is filled with practical ideas, resources, research, and strategies for learning from great people in history and in current events in different professional fields who've used their stress to achieve great things. And these are just some other teaching resources that are books. Happiness and Virtue is a collaboration with my colleagues and 10 academics in Japan, and we looked at Eastern and Western virtues, and we drew on a number of narratives and wisdom traditions to illustrate why those virtues are so important to human flourishing across tradition, creed, culture, political persuasion. And then, as Lauren mentioned, I have a particular interest in building the moral imagination through story. And this research is a very useful guide for teaching novels and looking at ways characters in literature reveal the complex journey of developing freedom, agency, and moral maturity. We also collaborate with universities, Boston University, and several universities around the country, helping them integrate character education into their leadership training for both teachers and school principals or head teachers. And these are just some books that we've used as a school that have been very powerful. Love Your Enemies by Arthur Brooks. We have a podcast with him. He spoke at the school. It's in our divided and polarized culture. We really need tools and social science to help us have fruitful dialogue and conversation. Reclaiming Conversation, Sherry Turkles at MIT, very powerful. And Emily Estami Smith is out at Stanford and has a lot of good social science arguments for what Viktor Frankl calls the power of finding meaning through suffering, relationships, and work. The student newspaper is also where I invite you to go after this presentation to see what do the students at Montrose School make of this education in character. And you'll find what they care about, what they write about, often reflects some of the power of this formative approach. So I want to double check with you, Lauren and Christine, what is our time frame? Because I know we got a little late start, but I just wanted to get a sense of our time.
Let me see now. Give me 1 second. I think, yep, you've got until 5:30.
Okay, perfect.
Which is
perfect.
Yeah, a lot
Great.
of time. And I don't know if you prefer that we leave questions for the end, or do you mind that we just keep asking questions as we go along?
You can put questions in the chat box, and then I'll take questions at the end. Okay. So what I want to do first is share with you the outward facing purposes of LifeCompass and what we provide. And you can find all of those tools and resources I just mentioned on our website, and then go specifically to the school. What does education in freedom, education in character, building a life compass look like in a school? So Montrose, as every school, has a unique and distinct mission, and most schools have beautiful logos with a lot of symbolism. And this is our seal, with Veritas, Caritas, and Libertas on it. And we know Veritas is truth, and truth guides our intellectual pursuits and helps us to become the best thinker, student, and professional we can be. It helps us cultivate those habits of mind we need to work well and to study well, with fair-mindedness, with intellectual honesty. Caritas, or charity, love, is that virtue that inspires and strengthens our relationships so that they're well ordered and seeking what's best for oneself and for the other person, in friendship with classmates, on athletic teams, in musical ensembles. And libertas, the ideal of freedom. Freedom, this is a typo here. Freedom helps us to choose well under stress and under pressure. And all of these ideals point to the very practical work we strive to do in and outside of the classroom and within all of our relationships with the students to help them develop habits of mind, habits of heart, and habits of character so they can thrive in their academics. They can thrive and flourish in their relationships, and they can respond to life's challenges and opportunities. And these are all the habits that help us to aim for greatness. At Montrose, we say Montrose is a school where girls are called to greatness, and that's not perfectionism, and nor is that trying to be better than anyone else. Aiming for greatness is striving to be one's best. It's, finding God and doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. It's that striving for the high point. So I put a lot in writing here because I wanted you to be able to have access to the slides. But these are the fundamental principles, kind of at the core of our anthropology. We believe each student is a work in progress with inherent dignity and potential to grow and change. We believe each student has the capacity to learn, grow, and pursue the truth. Each student is an embodied soul, unique and unrepeatable, unconditionally loved by God and invited to grow in a relationship with Him and others. I just want to go back. And we believe each student is free and necessarily will make mistakes in and outside of the classroom. Sorry. My mouse is doing funny things. I'm trying to use the arrows. Apologies. And we believe that accepting responsibility, seeking forgiveness, making amends is always that we grow in freedom and agency and maturity. And that's how we pursue these three ideals. So everything we do is aimed at putting young women in the driver's seat of their own learning and growth so they can develop and practice these habits of mind, these habits of heart, and these habits of character, which help them deal with those two fundamental realities that are so key to our maturity and growth, and that's fear and temptation. We have fear of public speaking, we might have fear of math, we might have fear of being excluded, and those are all of those internal challenges we face each day. And then we have temptations, and those are more external challenges that might distract us and keep us from focusing on our work when we're supposed to be working, or keep us from focusing on the person in front of us when we're called to pay attention and be present to them. So part of growing up and using our freedom well is learning to develop those habits of character, that courage, that self-mastery, that perseverance that helps us surmount some of those obstacles. And our job is to make these habits attractive, is to model them, to coach them, and to teach them, because character is developed in the context of relationships. We're fundamentally social beings, and if we as teachers and parents are not modeling these habits and modeling our mistakes and our struggle and admitting to our mistakes and our struggles and beginning again, then it's very difficult to coach them. But students need coaching as well as direct instruction. I'm going to talk more about how we do that at Montrose. So we have developed a practical framework called the LifeCompass framework. It's adaptable. It's being used and applied in different school and university settings, but at Montrose we use it in a very particular way. This framework is rooted in the best of ancient wisdom, what we know about human beings and how they thrive and flourish, what they aspire to, with current research and psychology and neuroscience about what we need to grow in intellectual virtue and moral virtue, and how we can aim for our true north, a true north that befits our dignity as human beings. So ultimately, using this compass or providing students with a compass rather than aiming for a set of behaviors or aiming for a particular way of being. We're aiming to help them develop the practical wisdom they need so they know what to do when they don't know what to do. We want them to walk away here not perfectly good, but we want them to walk away with the tools, with the compass, that with the practical wisdom that helps them to navigate every challenge and problem they find themselves in, because they build these habits of reflection, recalibration, and mature response. And they can overcome a first reaction, what we know from psychology and philosophy, a primus primi, and give a thoughtful response. So how do we do that? What does that look like? First, I'm going to share an old story of a farmer who worked his crops for many years, but one day his horse ran away. And upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. "Such bad luck, your horse ran away," they said sympathetically. And the farmer responded, "Maybe." The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. "How wonderful," the neighbors explained. And the old man replied, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses. He was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors came again to offer their sympathy on his misfortune. "Maybe," answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed by him. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. "Maybe," said the farmer. And so we find that life oftentimes, for young people as well as for educators and parents, presents us with a series of challenges and opportunities. And as a friend of mine once put it, sometimes God gives us opportunities gift wrapped as problems. And dealing with young people, helping them use their freedom well, is all about helping them think about, what is that maybe? What is it that I'm being asked of in this challenging or difficult situation, or in this mystery, or in this hardship? What is it? And they need to know what to do when they are confronted with these challenges and opportunities. And we like to say at Montrose, that practical wisdom is knowing what to do when you don't know what to do. And our goal is that when our students go through 4 or 7 years at Montrose, they leave knowing what to do when they don't know what to do. So we sorry, I muted myself accidentally. So we provide an education that helps them aim at virtues. You can call them good habits, you can call them strengths, but the qualities of a virtue are that they strengthen us from the inside. They are all about human excellence. They engage our freedom, they involve choice, and they activate our agency. So we're moving towards something that's good for ourselves and good for others. And, our father, St. Josemaria, talked about this when he talked about prudence. He says, virtue is a high point. It's not just a mean, but it's the high point between 2 extremes when we're facing choices. So let's look at Aristotle a second. We know in any situation we're confronted with, we have a first reaction of primus primi. It might be extreme anger, or it might be extreme withdrawal and indifference. And we're seeking virtue, human excellence, or greatness. We're seeking that high point. So in the case of fear, we know we might run away from a challenge because we're fearful or cowardly, or we might lean into it without thought, without advice, and do something reckless. So courage is that high point of knowing what to fear, what not to fear, and pursuing something difficult because it's worth the struggle. It's worth the sacrifice. So how do we come to that mature understanding? Well, one of the challenges we face in our culture today is finding a way to deal with people, to deal with and have fruitful conversations with people who have very different points of view. And with young people, they can become undiscerning and blindly compliant and just agree with whatever any of their peers say. Or they can become very prejudiced and stand firm in their conviction and not listen to other people. Both of these extremes are part of our first reaction to a situation. And in this whole first reaction, we know that comes from our upbringing, our experience, our childhood, our education. And we can't get upset about our first reaction, and we can't get upset about other people's first reactions either. We just need to accept where they are. But in order to make space, to create distance between that first reaction and create space to consider the kind of response that befits my dignity, to consider the kind of response that's aligned with aiming for greatness, becoming my best possible self, we need some help. We need some tools. And so the compass helps us press pause and creates this space between that first reaction, helps us reframe some of the questions to ask. Well, what kind of classmate or friend do I want to be? And what do I know about this situation? What do I need to know about this situation? Who can help? What research can I do? So pressing pause to reflect helps us step away from the heat of our first reaction or the withdrawal of our first reaction, or those habits that keep us from becoming our best self. And once we reflect, then we can recalibrate. We can and decide to take one small step that leads me to listen, ask a question, ask a clarifying question, and come to appreciate what it means to be fair-minded. But again, we need to create the conditions where we can reflect, recalibrate, and respond. And we do this at Montrose in the classroom. We teach them strategies for fair-mindedness. We give them protocols for having discussions. We help the girls develop protocols for good conversations, courageous conversations, so that particularly in a culture of social media where there's so much labeling, where there's cancel culturing, we need to create a forum and a space where it's safe to and they have practice speaking respectfully to each other and asking good questions. So our compass really is all about giving young women, the agency they need to make free and responsible decisions. That, we're not free when we give into our first reaction. We stay stuck in a place, and we make bad decisions that we regret, and we can begin again. That's part of why the compass is a circle. Sometimes we just need to recalibrate first, and then we can reflect. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to walk through a training we did, and we've iterated several times, and what we encourage all of our mentors who are teachers in the school to model and practice with our students. We call these coaching conversations. So a student comes to us with a problem, or she comes in tears. Nobody likes me. I was alone at lunch today. This person looked away. I read this on social media, any number of things, which has her very upset. Our job is first to practice, before we even do this reflection exercise, is to first do some reflective listening. Help me understand what bothers you the most. What happened? Tell me more about that. In fact, just give her the space to speak without solving the problem. Just validate her feelings. I understand and appreciate why you feel that way. And this is really important. Sorry. This is very important to take the step of the reflective listening before we move into these reflection questions. Because when we honor a person in their messy, raw selves, they feel loved, they feel affirmed, they feel accepted for who they are. They're free to be vulnerable. When a person is free to be vulnerable, and we can say, I understand why you would feel hurt. I understand why you are feeling, this way. Then they feel understood and heard. Then we can challenge them to press pause and reframe. But we have to honor the first reaction first. That's sort of a prerequisite to using the compass. So then we can help them. And once we've said, do I understand you correctly? Have I heard everything? Then we can say, what are you aiming at? What would you like to do in this situation? And who do you aspire to be? Somebody who retaliates, somebody who makes peace. Who do you aspire to be right now? When we can help them create the space and think this way, what would you like to see happen? We're already catalyzing their agency. And we're already engaging their prefrontal cortex, and that limbic system that's so upset and stressed can start to calm down because we've affirmed them, we've acknowledged them, and now we're trying to engage their agency. And again, we're just asking the questions and repeating back what we hear them say. And then we help them to expand their point of view and to develop a little bit of perspective. What might this situation look like from another person's point of view, the other person they're upset with, concerned about? Then remind them, you have capacity. What are the strengths you have that can help you with this right now? It's always important to remind them that they have capacity, that they can be part of the solution. And then to think of that, this is very fundamental in psychology, reframing. What's the opportunity that up for growth that exists in this challenge? What could you grow in? And let them name some of the areas they could grow in. Courage, patience, and why is that valuable? So that's sort of the first step. And then once we've had this conversation, and sometimes it might be too that we ask these reflection questions, we might need to ask them to step away and talk about it tomorrow or in a week's time because the situation might still be so hot. They may need to journal about it, write things down, and then come back for a more fruitful conversation. Again, that is encouraging ownership. That is encouraging prayer, study, reflection. Then they can recalibrate. And recalibrating is all about encouraging and facilitating some sort of restorative activity that just makes them feel human again and in charge. And sometimes it's going for a walk, sometimes it's walking while having that reflection conversation. Maybe they need exercise, maybe they're sleep deprived, and so their anger is even greater. Art, music, prayer, deep breathing is really important. Any kind of mindfulness activity, good nutrition, a conversation with a good friend or parent. Sometimes you have to recalibrate before you can reflect. So these are very loose. They're in a cycle for a reason, and we have to be experts in humanity to know what each person needs. If they're overwrought, what do they need first? Because these activities help to calm our stress response, our sympathetic nervous system, and make problem solving and ownership, use of our freedom, easier. Sometimes this kind of recalibration solves the problem altogether, and the person comes back ready with a plan. But this is very holistic. It takes the whole person into account. It honors them. Then we can coach them to a response. So instead of they're counting on us to give them a solution, or instead of our giving into that tendency to give an answer or fix a problem, we coach them to look for a solution that's meaningful to them, that will help them grow, and that's aligned with their true north, their best self. And sometimes, again, we just affirm them. And this is Lisa Demure, is a psychologist, works with girls, and she likes to say to young people who bring her a crisis, that stinks. How would you like to handle it? Or we can say, this is a difficult, or this is an exciting challenge. How might you break it down? What's one small step you can take right now that aligns with who you are and who you want to be? And then what support do you need from me or from someone else who can help? So here we're just creating the kind of conversation in a trusting relationship. We've affirmed them. We haven't judged them. We haven't fixed anything. We are just giving them the tools to exercise agency and ownership and come up with something small and concrete that they can do. And then, these are just any number of habits that they develop when we coach them in this process. And I'm going to, these are on our website as well. The habits of mind, the habits of heart that they can grow in as they develop this compass. I'm going to move along here so we can pause for questions. The three things that are fundamental is one, that characters developed within relationships. Two, that the relationships and the experience in our school or in our club activities provide inspiration and aspiration. So the films we show, the books we read, the speakers we bring in, the mentors we pair young people with, we want them to be inspiring examples so that then they grow in their aspirations to be women who are courageous, who have tenacity, who are fair-minded, who have big hearts, and who are aiming at ambitious goals for society, for the world, for their family, for others. And thirdly, these the students need, young people need opportunities for practice. And so the coaching conversation using the Compass protocol really helps them to do something, because we develop strengths, we develop good habits of mind, heart, and character, or virtue, through doing. As Aristotle said, we become brave by doing brave acts, liar players by playing the liar. And that's true in science and writing and math and any professional apprenticeship we have. We need practice, and then we need opportunities to reflect on our practice. We need opportunities to recalibrate and to respond again in better ways. So really, we're helping them aim well. I'm going to stop here and invite a conversation. That the whole purpose of this compass in all aspects of school life, in the classroom and outside, is to help them to flourish as human beings, to thrive in school and work and in life. And they need to develop those strengths to flourish, those habits and dispositions. And they need the compass, the practical wisdom, to navigate the various challenges they face with peers in their work, so that they know how to recalibrate and respond in ways that take them beyond their first reaction. That's what leads to sort of the flourishing and the happiness and the true freedom that will enable them to thrive in any environment. So I'm going to stop there, invite questions, comments, take a look at I'm not seeing the chat box on my end, but perhaps you are, someone can read the questions to me.
Karen, so this morning we heard from a couple of educators as well from like Mexico and Chile and Spain, and they were saying things very similar about, educating, the whole person, like teaching people to know what it means to be a human being and forming not just one aspect, mind, or just, will, but the whole person. So this is very much in line with what we've heard this morning. But my question, you know, I find it fascinating what you've talked to us about the compass kind of method that you say of like, I'm not going to go in and give her a solution, but I'm just going to like let her in a way solve those problems of hers on her own to teach her how to form her own compass in a way. I think that's what I'm gathering from what you're telling us about the compass method. But my question is, having worked in schools, I've seen a lot of parents and even teachers that they don't like mistakes. Like they're not comfortable seeing these young girls making mistakes. Some parents think that these mistakes are going to cost the girls, you know, like it's going to cause them damage. You know, like, oh, if you don't get the good enough grade, you're not going to get into the course at university, and then your life is going to be miserable because, I'm just saying the normal narrative that we hear that parents say. So, how would you kind of confront that in a way or explain that to parents and adults that are trying to form young people, like the idea of like dealing with mistakes, and how do you help young people like when they've made a mistake to kind of recalibrate, if you will, after that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question and set of comments. I think, and I want to be clear too, that we are dealing with secondary students, so 11 to 18-year-olds, and it's a pivotal moment of their growth in competence and competence. And so what we train I wouldn't say we train, but we do educate our parents in this compass, and we help them coach as parents as well. Because when we don't allow young people to recalibrate, we deprive them of the opportunity to grow in competence, competence, and ownership. And so they will continue to live in fear or dependence on other people to speak on their behalf, to hide a problem so that it's not on their record. And so we draw heavily on Carol Dweck's work. I'm sure many of you have read Mindset, and she talks about the importance of a growth mindset in academic learning. And it's all about neuroplasticity, and it has the same relevance to development of character and other good habits. And so when we talk about developing strong young women, women who can be agile, who can navigate life independently but purposefully, it's so critical at this moment in time, when we are all on the same page, parents and adults, we want what's best for your daughter. This is the safest place to make mistakes. And we tell parents to, look, we reserve the right, all of our discipline is formative, not punitive. We are not here to ruin your daughter's life or to keep her out of college. And so we do provide opportunities to retake certain things. We don't inflate grades, but we do give them as much opportunities to learn and grow as possible. So it's about bringing the parents into the danger of a mindset, which is a fixing and protecting one. And we use the Aristotle scale. You can have parenting that's helicoptering over here, and you can have parenting that's completely laissez-faire. And what we're aiming at is something that is more authoritative, not authoritarian, and we know what we stand for and why, and we want to give them this compass. We want to give them these habits. So it's about keeping parents close and in the game, and providing as much formation to them. It's not perfect, but when all of the adults in the school, we focused first on the education of the adults. We were always developing programs for the girls and doing things for the girls. And we realized we as adults need to hold ourselves accountable to model, practice, and coach this with each other and with the parents. When we work on that for 12 to 18 months, then we can talk again about how we improve it with the students. And that's been very helpful to us as a school community. So we always reference this compass in almost everything we do with the parents. And it gives us a much stronger shared position rather than an adversarial one.
Hi, I'm Maria Jose, and I'm a pediatrician. And I have like just two questions. Um, how do you make these habits attractive? I mean, at the first time when they start going to school, and how do you fight with all the models are TV and all the, I mean, what they are surrounded by besides school?
Great question. So we have a lot of competition. We have a competition with pop culture. We have competition with sort of anti-heroes, so to speak, and sometimes with peers. So I had mentioned inspiration and aspiration. I would say story, artwork, music, beauty is really, really important. So in a school or in a club activity, we want to have the girls encounter and experience beautiful lyrics, beautiful music. We want them to hear the stories of famous supermodels. We brought in a supermodel who talked about how she developed a lot of integrity and what she chose to do and not do on the job, and what kinds of things she'll model for and with, and what she won't do. So those stories, great narratives, whether they are in film or in short stories and books, and they can be contemporary, they don't all have to be classics, are really important, because that's how we build the imagination. So building the imagination so that we have a storehouse of other people we admire and fall in love with, and building the memory of great experiences, whether it's a conversation with a speaker or an experience I had that was so positive with my peer group at my club or in school. So at Montrose, traditions, games, older students, younger students, spending time together, doing things that are fun, doing service, creates a memory of working together collaboratively, constructively, and in service to others that they may not have experienced outside of the school before. And that inspires them, and those seeds make those habits of service, of kindness, of constructive teamwork attractive. So we do have to create the experiences, the memories, and the storehouse of images through story. And story is as a pediatrician, there's a lot of great neuroscience on the power of stories. We're storytelling animals. It helps the stories stay in our memory. And we have to substitute a diet of negative stories and dark stories and negative music and dark music with alternatives. So it's really up to us to be creative and to keep building those rich, positive resources.
Aaron, I don't know if you can see me. You can't, okay.
I can't, I'm looking down, I'm trying to scroll down.
Okay, so I'm Maxi from Nigeria, and you've spoken a lot about rewriting the narrative, helping young people to fall in love with good music, good literature. But the truth is that we live in a society that's all for the quick and the immediacy of everything. My question is, how do you form young people to think using literature, good literature? Because the process you have in your school, is it included in the curriculum, or you have it as extracurricular activities? How do you help young people to get really into good literature, music?
We do integrate it into the content of what we teach, and we choose well. I mean, think about it, nutrition is so hot and popular, and we are very mindful of what we consume and what we eat and how it affects us. And so I use that same metaphor, nutrition and exercise, and what we choose, is it not only healthy, but also tastes good. And so we choose literature, we choose music, history, artifacts that are going to create this level of inspiration. But we're also very practical. And when we do have once a week a character and leadership discussion, and we use examples from social media. And one of our students several years ago decided a way she wanted to make a contribution was to illustrate only positivity online. So she just branded herself as, positivity poster, and it inspired other people to choose what they want to post, what they want to like, and keep it very positive. So we try to create as much positive peer culture as well through the student newspaper. And it's student newspaper is freedom of expression, so there will also be criticisms of different things. But they are empowered to be a force for good in the world and to share that good by finding music they love and enjoy and posting it that's positive. And there's so much of what they create here is beautiful, whether it's from history, artwork, nature. They really do showcase our teachers and our students an appreciation for what's beautiful and what's good. And that doesn't mean they don't study dark themes. We do, but we looked at those dark themes and dark content in dialogue with those works and poems and historical moments that reveal the power of the human person to overcome negativity and darkness. So I'm very hopeful because kids want permission to be happy and to be inspired and to share the hope on that. They need a break from some of the negativity. And their culture is not entirely negative either. But we do purposefully look at the curriculum, make choices. And I think poetry is very powerful. Short poetry, contemporary poetry. A lot of song lyrics are written in verse. Poetry itself is music. And we use poetry in different disciplines too, just to kind of get everybody thinking about something more deeply, more sensitively, or to be more attuned to the feelings of others or get a wider perspective. So we have a lot of tools in our culture.
Thank you.
Too late.
Karen, thank you so much for the session that you've just given us. It was very inspiring. It was actually amazing. We just want to give you a round of applause. Hear it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And what a great couple of days conference you have before you. Enjoy, and please know you can come to Montrose anytime when you're in the